There we go. Hello, everyone. I am Catherine Brown. I'm the Public Relations Director with INE. Thanks so much to everyone who's joining us. Really appreciate all of you jumping into this, what we hope will be a super exciting webinar on all things cloud. We have some amazing guests with us, INE instructor Philip Wiley and John Helmus. I'm going to go through some introductions for them in just a few minutes, but also want to say hello to our Facebook audience out there. And we are streaming live on Facebook. So if you have questions on Facebook, you can go ahead and just post them in the comment section below, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. If you're watching on our webinar stream, then just post the questions in the Q&A section of the webinar, and we will again try to get to as many as we can. Let's see. All right. John and Philip, if you guys can flip on your cameras, we will go ahead and get started. Hey guys, how are you?
Hey Catherine, great. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey John.
Hey Catherine, how are you?
I am great. Looking forward to getting started. So just a little bit of housekeeping first. Just to let you know, this webinar is being recorded. You'll get a copy emailed to you tomorrow if you registered online, or if you're watching on Facebook. We'll go ahead and post this on Facebook so you can watch it back as well. I already mentioned the Q&A. We'd love to hear your questions. You can post them in the comment section on Facebook or in the Q&A section on the webinar, and we'll get to as many as we can. I know we had a bunch of questions submitted through the registration for the webinar, so we've got a long queue of those, and we're going to put Philip and John on the spot for those, but should be a fun discussion. John looks scared, but I know he can answer anything, right?
Of course.
Again, my name is Catherine Brown. I'm PR Director here at INE, and welcome to this month's edition of BizTech Blueprint in the Clouds. We have with us, as I mentioned, Philip Wiley, INE instructor. Philip has more than 2 decades of experience with information technology and cybersecurity. His specialties include penetration testing and application security. When Philip is not hacking, which is pretty rare, he is educating others, which is his other passion, I know. Philip is the founder of the PWN School Project. It's an education-focused cybersecurity organization. And he also co-authored the book, The Pen Tester Blueprint, Starting a Career as an Ethical Hacker, based on his popular talk that he has given at numerous industry events. He's an Innocent Lives Foundation ambassador, which I know he is very, very proud of, and a hacking is not a crime advocate. Philip had a pretty uncommon journey into cybersecurity, as he started out as a pro wrestler in the 1980s, where he once wrestled a bear named Samson.
Man.
One of these days, I'm going to post that picture up here, Philip.
Okay.
Also joined by John Helmus. John is a hacker, leader, author, professor, been working in engineering and information technology and security for more than a dozen years, with positions ranging from consulting to DoD red teaming and teaching. He's also founder of the platform Offensive Security Interviews. It's a platform used to support enthusiasts to get into the offensive security field. John is currently a PhD candidate at Dakota State University Cyber Operations Program, holds various certifications, and is also co-author of the book, AWS Penetration Testing, A Beginner's Guide to Penetration AWS. So thank you to you both for being here. Really, really appreciate your time. Today we are talking about cloud, as the title of this webinar suggests. And, around the globe, cloud solutions have become more mainstream in businesses large and small, particularly as we've seen this pandemic just continue to envelop the entire world. And it's seen as really a more secure alternative to on-prem solutions. But through discussions that Philip and John and many others in this industry have had, is it really a more secure alternative? And what do you need to make sure that your cloud solutions are as secure as you want them to be? So in this webinar, we're going to be talking about cloud security concerns, cloud pen testing, and some best practices. And with that, Philip, I just want to pitch it over to you first to talk a little about this misconception out there. And you classified it as a misconception that cloud is inherently more secure, but you say not really.
No, exactly. That's just like anything, any kind of technology that comes out. It's only as secure as the people that administer it. I mean, look at the Capital One S3 bucket leakage of information. That's an example. So you have to make sure things are secure. And cloud is a good platform, but make sure you're doing everything you need to secure that, and not just expect it to be secure by default. And that goes for any kind of technology.
What about you, John? What do you think?
Yeah, to feed off what Phil is saying is that, it's only as secure as you make it, and the cloud in and of itself is built with security by default. However, it's built with security by default until someone interacts with it. That someone is the engineers, the users that are going to be interacting with the services and putting applications on those services. So while the hardware that is being supported by the cloud provider, yes, that is secure in and of itself, because as per the SLA, the shared security model that's shared between clients and the cloud provider, it's going to be secure. However, everything on the user level, such as like the applications, the encryption models, all that good stuff that we're putting on these services that we're going to be using in the cloud, we still have to maintain the security of whatever it is that we're using within the cloud. And as we move forward, in the technology era that we're living in, we're seeing a big uptick in where companies are wanting to do this kind of like lift and shift, or as I like to say, that we want to make sure that we stay with the crowd, that we're still with the cool kids. So a lot of medium to large businesses will integrate the cloud into their organization without fully understanding the service level agreements and the security models based around the cloud. And then also for smaller companies, a lot of times it's cheaper to put things in the cloud. However, especially with like small companies, they don't always have, the money to fund a bigger staff. So, an engineer might be doing the amount of work that 10 engineers would do at a bigger company. And when that happens, they might not have all of the time to allocate to understanding the security of these cloud services that they're going to be deploying and securing. As Phil had mentioned, even with the big S3 bucket data breach last year, I think it was last year, right? COVID has made time.
Well, blends together,
right? Right. But with the Capital One attack, and where it was a big data leak, that was even in a big company, right? So nobody's immune to these types of attacks. It happens everywhere. But at the end of the day, it's really this service level awareness that does become a misconception, but also just doesn't get fully understood.
Speaking to businesses that are, specifically to businesses that are either considering or recently have switched over to a cloud platform, and this is to both of you, John and Phil, what's the one bit of advice that you would say, if you can do one thing to make sure that you are using cloud in the right way, the most secure way, to the business leaders who are charged with doing this, what's the one most important bit of advice you would give them?
For me, I'm going to say it would be education. And that's not just the people doing the security piece. That's also the administrators, the system administrators that are administering the cloud. Because one of the things I have seen from a pen tester over the years, and just traditional pen testing, a lot of times the system engineers, the people that are managing the infrastructure, even some of the application developers, don't understand securing and configuring that technology itself. So that leaves it open with a lot of vulnerability. So I'd say one of the things you really need to look at is make sure that your team, people managing the cloud, people securing the cloud, understand that technology and understand how to secure that.
And just to follow up there, is that a matter of initial education? Is that a matter of constant training within the organization?
It'd be a combination of both. So you're getting ready to move into the cloud, then I would say educate the people before you start to transition, and then ongoing education. So especially for security and IT, that really needs to be a lifelong learning process, constantly learning, because there's always new features being added to cloud, so you need to keep up with that.
And John, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, to just kind of like piggyback off of what Phil is saying is that, this continuous learning is a big part of being a security engineer in and of itself already. So it's almost not solely the responsibility of the security engineer to spread that awareness. However, it is those security teams' responsibilities to ensure that the security awareness is being spread out. So as Phil had mentioned, security awareness is key. I agree 100% with that. To also even add to that is to ensure that the companies and the teams within these companies, or the departments within these companies that are deploying and securing and monitoring the cloud, they need to ensure that they are referencing frameworks to frameworks to reference on how they build and deploy and to secure their cloud. Because while the cloud is not new, but it is new, there's not a lot of efficient frameworks that are very dynamic to help basically build security programs around the cloud. They're there, but there's not nearly as many as there are for just traditional, information security systems, information systems. So security awareness is a big thing. And then also making sure that you're referencing the right type of data to build your security programs that are going to help illustrate that awareness to your users is a key point.
Yeah, and as people are beginning to utilize cloud more and more, I think there is a conception out there that platforms hosted by these big names like Amazon and Google are inherently and automatically more secure. We know that isn't the case. Can you talk a little about the risks that some people and businesses may not be thinking of as they're beginning to implement these, particularly these large and very well-known name platforms?
You want to take this, Phil?
Yeah, I think it's like anything else, trying to understand the risk. I think even people like at the management level don't understand it. And that's another area for education, because one of my past jobs as a red team lead for a global consumer products company, there was a lot of people management on the business side that didn't understand the difference between a vulnerability scan, a security vulnerability assessment, a pen test, or a red team engagement. So even as far as those topics go, getting the management to understand, making sure your architects understand that cloud piece, because that's a really important piece of your infrastructures now, and having architects that understand that. Yeah.
I again 100% agree with Phil on this one. The other thing is too nobody wants to think about the bad things that are going to happen to them, right? So they want to look at the positive, and they want to look at the positivity or the positive impact that the cloud's going to provide for them, right? It's going to help them save money. It's going to make them much more faster and a lot more agile. However, with that also comes the other side of the coin, where if you scale faster than you're able to, efficiently do, you might start to see services go down, or you might start to see burnout within your security teams, where they can't keep up with securing the cloud and keep up with the whole thing, right? And I know that's a blanket statement, but that's a big thing, is that scaling out, honestly, because the cloud is so easily scalable, there's a lot of risks that come with that, between burnout in your employees and also having services go down, or just not implementing the right security controls within your cloud infrastructure, especially with scale in mind. When you're scaling, you're deploying often. So you might not create new security controls that need to go into the new deployments that you're pushing out next month, because those might not match what you put out last month. And that's a pretty common trend that happens, where just services that are 2 months old need new security controls, but they get pushed out with the same old security controls. So
it seems like another issue too that I've seen is management sometimes has these unreasonable timelines. So they're pushing stuff out so quickly that things get missed and get put in insecurely. What's your experience with that?
Yeah, it's the usability over security trend, right? Where, pen testers, we're not foreign to that. That's why we have pen testers, to validate and evaluate those kinds of issues. Yeah, no, 100% is where you'll see the typical like, hey, this has to be done before you leave the office, and the engineer's like, well, I got to go to my kid's soccer game, so I'm gonna go stand up these instances or these services within the cloud, and then I'll get to security tomorrow. They met the usability portion of it. They just didn't worry about the security portion. They say, okay, I'll do that tomorrow, and then before the semi-annually audit or pen test comes around, they forgot to actually implement security controls into the cloud or into that infrastructure that they deployed. And then you have an issue that potentially pops up.
So kind of piggybacking off of that, as as leaders are tasked with migrating their teams onto the cloud, right? And ensuring the best practices and ensuring that they are doing all the things that they need to be doing. There's also another piece of this puzzle, that using the old frameworks to deploy into the cloud enterprises doesn't really work.
Correct.
How do you ensure right out of the gate that everyone understands that and everyone is on board with that? How do you get that buy-in company-wide?
I think a big thing to do with that is to make sure that when you want company buy-in, especially for a new type of architecture or infrastructure within your organization, you need to have competent leaders within your department. And in this case, with security architecture in the cloud, your best bet is going to be placing your bets on your enterprise architects that are going to be able to, one, build out those new frameworks, referencing other frameworks, rather they be from the cloud or not from the cloud. But those individuals, their job is to build out frameworks for the company to ensure that whatever they're deploying is secured properly and monitored properly. So yeah, it's really ensuring that leadership, and in my opinion, most importantly, that the enterprise architects that are in charge of overlooking the development and deployment of what they're illustrating and telling their teams to do is where you're going to see the most benefit and the most important buy-in from for stakeholders.
Philip, what do you think in terms of how companies and employees can sort of reformat their brain almost to ensure that they're evaluating the cloud in the right way?
Yeah, I think that goes back to education. And another thing to kind of, we've mentioned that, management, the architects and, security people all need to understand that, but there need to be some security awareness, maybe some security awareness training for the end users, and then show them how to properly use it. Just kind of really just goes back to educating, because one of the biggest things you see from a pen tester perspective is things not secured properly, things not deployed properly. When it comes down to breaches, it's either misconfigurations, outdated software, or easy guessed credentials for people to get in. So security awareness, because some of the people that maybe not be deploying the technology, but help the different supporting people within the organization understand the cloud.
We have a ton of questions, and so I want to get to as many of them as we can. So if it's okay with you guys, I'm just going to jump right in to some of these questions. The first, and this is to both of you, is there technology out there capable of protecting us from mass data surveillance? And if so, what would that be?
Mass data surveillance. I don't know of any off the top of my head. Phil, do you?
I can't think of any technologies. That's just going to be, practicing, things for good privacy. Make sure that, as far as like people using search engines, use search engines that are not tracking you. Be careful with using, some of the virtual assistants like the Alexas and Google Home and those sort of things. Just, it's a manual process. So you just have to educate yourself on that. I really don't know many tools that really do that.
Is that sort of thing where at this point the horse is out of the gate, right? And it's just up to each individual person to kind of put those safeguards around themselves to make sure that they're guarding themselves? Because
Yes.
is it a situation where at this point, you should just assume that there's mass data surveillance and do what you can to protect yourself?
Yeah, I think it's just, one of these things as an individual, don't depend on your company to protect you, because, a lot of people are just really starting to get into the privacy area. You look at GDPR over in over in Europe, for privacy, and some of the California privacy laws, this stuff's starting to catch on. But don't wait till your company, starts to get in compliance with that stuff. Be proactive and, kind of monitor the apps that track where you are. Only use, limit the access to your location, that sort of thing. Just limit that. Just educate yourself and protect yourself, because you don't want to be tracked, and you're use safer browsers like DuckDuckGo and search engines and that sort of thing. So you just kind of have to educate yourself on privacy and be careful. Use VPNs when you're out in public. Make sure you're using antivirus and that sort of thing. You just have to kind of educate yourself, because you really can't depend on, even outside of work, your ISPs or these different places you may go to use public Wi-Fi. You can't depend on someone else to secure you. You have to take that upon yourself.
Want something done right, you got to do it yourself, right? That's what our mom taught us. All right, another good question here. Will network security become obsolete because of AI? We're hearing so much about AI. It's like having a moment right now. Will network security become obsolete?
I think that depends on like the timeline that you want to give it in. I don't think in any time, at least not in the current timeline, like maybe the next 10 to 20 years, just because there's network security everywhere. Even in the cloud, your cloud is hosted in a network, and it has networks inside of it. And with AI taking over, I don't know if it would make. I wouldn't say that it's going to make network security, go away or obsolete. But I do think that AI will help improve a lot of the ways of how we secure our perimeters within our infrastructure on the network. Just because it's able to assist us so much. But you still are going to have you're still going to have an engineer or an array of engineers that are going to have to keep up with the AI technology that's going to be integrated and integrated and deployed within networks, right? So therefore, you're still going to have a network engineer that specializes in that AI technology. So I wouldn't say it would go away completely. It's just going to change, right? As time moves forward, it's just going to change.
Anything to add to that, Phil?
No, I agree. You constantly hear that subject all the time: AI and machine learning replacing things. Outside of like network security, I think as far as pen testing, I think it's going to enhance the tools and create better tools, but I don't think it's replacing people anytime soon. Once you see some other tasks that are a little bit easier starting to be replaced, then you can see that they're working towards more complex tasks.
Another question here. What are the best practices for implementing cloud security in a mobile app specifically?
Oh, that's a good one, because that incorporates like IoT devices and everything. And that's really going back to what Phil said about security awareness. And that's really ensuring that, if you have a device that's interacting with a mobile application that's in the cloud, or you're using the client on your phone, you need to ensure that, you're still taking the same security procedures that you would just as a normal user, right? That you want to make sure that you're that you're locking your phone, that you're not allowing, just a bunch of random apps on your phone, right? You want to make sure that you're doing things like that. If you're accessing that app and you're in a Starbucks or something, you want to make sure that you're not on the public Wi-Fi while you're accessing that app. It's the same security awareness measures that we take now. It's just with a different background that we as the users don't even really see.
And it seems like this is probably more important now and more relevant now than ever, as so many people are working from home and they're away from the traditional office where you've got those barriers and you've got that security set up. Now, it's constant, people taking their laptops to Starbucks, people taking their, devices all over the place and working at their kids. Like you mentioned, they're working at their kids' soccer games or stepping out someplace else to use their devices for work. And so it seems like businesses really need to pay very close attention to this right now.
Absolutely. There's a term called the cloud of things, which is very real and it's very much here. But it's essentially just it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the integration of IoT and the cloud, and mobile fits in there. Mm-hmm. And with that, there's already a lot of IoT security issues that folks are still trying to catch up with, and cloud is also having a lot of security issues that folks are trying to catch up with, and the same with mobile. So when you combined all three of those, you're kind of it's a soup sandwich essentially that we're having to organize essentially.
Yep, more
like
attack vectors.
Right. It's just more. It's the threat landscape just opened up. It went from being a dinner plate to a buffet essentially.
Good way of putting it.
This is a question. It's not specifically tied to cloud, but given the experience that the two of you have, I think you can probably offer some really good insight into this. One of our viewers asked, how is the best way to maintain the positive mentality of current employees and keep them motivated? How do you raise team performance and then maintain it as well? Again, not cloud centric, but you guys are both very smart, very experienced. What's your words of advice on that?
You want to go, Phil?
Sure. One of the things I do, and with my students and people that I've mentored over the years and supervised in different roles, is just encourage people when they do something good. Encourage them to learn and develop themselves. So that's one of the biggest things to encourage. And even to kind of mention, we kept mentioning security awareness. These security awareness programs where they send the phishing emails out to people. I think a better way to reinforce that is to reward people instead of punishing people. So, when you hear the negative, it's kind of hard. People are, you upset people, and it's really hard to get them to focus on improving. But if you encourage them when they do it right, positive reinforcement, I think that's a better way.
Yeah. And to, with Phil talking more in the general user aspect, with like security teams or cloud teams, the big thing is to, especially now that we work in a mobile workforce, for the time being, is to ensure that you're still finding ways, even in this digital world, to keep that technical camaraderie that a lot of security teams have. Especially in my own experience, the most are the security teams with the most camaraderie are the red teams, the pen test teams. I don't know why, but that's just in my own experience, is that it's this weird kind of family thing that happens. And that's happened on every red team and pen test team I've been on. And so the big thing is to ensure that you're still engaging in your team members as people and finding out what interests them. Something I found successful is to make sure that you allot time for training. As we work in, a remote workforce, a lot of folks say that they find themselves actually working more, right? And especially for pen testers, one of the big things that we like to do is that we like to train and constantly level up our skills. So it's good to make sure that you're doing bi-weekly CTFs with your team, or doing, various training sessions, doing cloud training sessions, things like that, so that when those individuals are happy, they're going to be executing their jobs to the best of their abilities, which a big part of their jobs also falls into what Phil was talking about, is giving that security awareness, making sure that they're executing, formal, comprehensible, and friendly phishing engagements, right? So that it's not just like, oh, you clicked on the email, you got to do this PowerPoint and say you did it, versus, actually doing something that's fun, engaging, and interactive. Because at the end of the day, the security engineers are the ones that are going to be building out those awareness programs, or the security teams rather. So,
anything else to add, Phil?
Nope.
All right. Well, that is a perfect seg. I really appreciate both of you guys joining us. We're going to wrap up this segment, but INE is hosting Cloud Week from April 12th through the 16th. And so we are going to have a ton of webinars and just a lot of activities that week. Some really cool stuff. We're going to have some giveaways. We've got all the information on our website. And if you are subscribed to INE emails, you'll be getting information about how to register for some of those events, some of the webinars, and that sort of thing. And I always like to wrap it up by asking a random question. So, John, I'm going to ask you first. What is one thing you have in your pocket right now?
In my pocket? I don't have anything in my pocket, but I've been sitting here holding a pen for about the past 30 minutes.
All right, we'll take it. We'll take it. Phil, what's one thing you have in your pocket right now?
Nothing but maybe some lint.
Some lint in your pocket. All right. Fair point. I told you I like to pick a random question and just ask it, see what we can find out. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. This was very informative, and hopefully our audience got some insight and some information and a lot of value out of this. Again, we will be sending a recorded version of this to those of you who registered for the webinar through our website. And if you are watching on Facebook, we appreciate that as well. We'll be posting it on Facebook as well, so you can go back and rewatch that. Just one more quick plug. We are, again, Cloud Week, April 12th through the 16th, and we'll be doing lots of cool things that week. In the meantime, if you have an idea for something that you want us to talk about on BizTech Blueprint, you can send me an email at kbrown@ine.com or just use a hashtag BizTech Blueprint on any of our social media platforms. We'll find it, we promise, and we'd love to answer your questions. So thanks to our audience for chiming in, for being very engaging, throwing a lot of questions out there. And a special thanks to Philip Wiley and John Helmus for joining us today. Really appreciate it, guys.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
All right, take care. Have a great day.
Take care.